Yeah, so well, I mean, going back to kind of the whole like
That's the
attention
stereotype.
rates,
That's
yeah,
that's the, that's the
and
movie stereotype.
right, exactly, and that's what the skit was all about. Is like a lot of times the teachers I feel like more commonly like teachers have so many things they need to navigate through, right, with their students, right? So not only do they have like this breadth of information, they have AI now, they have social media. Like I hear a lot of teachers have a hard time like trying to determine whether they should befriend their students. Some people have the rules where they don't follow them on Instagram until
Hmm.
they either graduated or have left their class. Are no longer like a teacher
In their
student
grade, yeah,
type of connection. Yeah.
yeah,
So there's so much more that I think that they have to deal with than, of course, just having more information. And like I feel like in this day and age, there's a lot of identity items and then mental health that they have to deal with, right? Like, I there was that story about that person who was sextortioned. I forget his name, but he was sextortioned, and he committed suicide because like this person posing as a girl had convinced him to send his nudes, and when he had his nudes, they were gonna just give it to the whole family, right? Like everyone within his friends list, and then he ended up killing himself. And I feel like there's so much that they have to deal with now that kind of makes the job really tough. Like it's a really tough job.
yeah.
Aren't you glad you're not a teacher?
I'm glad I wasn't a student back in modern times.
I'm, like, I'm glad I'm not a student in
Yeah.
this day and age. Yeah. So I know that they have to deal with a lot, like even, Malia, who helps us with this podcast, she has to deal with a lot. And it's tough because I don't know about your generation because you're not in the same generation as me, technically.
We
I
are in
think
the
you're
same
on the,
generation. We're
not
both millennials.
necessarily,
Yeah,
but I'm an older millennial.
true, but you're still a millennial. That's still the same generation.
Do you feel like we have the same traits then?
Similar experiences growing up
Yeah.
in terms of
So,
school and
yeah.
historical events. Yeah, and
Yeah, and then
games and social
right,
media
and
and the interactions
entertainment
with
and
social media, entertainment.
what we
Yeah,
what we grew up with.
yeah,
So
exactly. Yeah.
we have a lot of commonality, and I feel like we're kind of explaining like a time capsule to these individuals, these young kids that were like, oh, this is how it was, 20 years ago, back in high school, and it's nowhere where it's at right now. And I have interns with me that live in this new world, and it's just so complex. I'm like thinking to myself, like, I feel like I can relate to them pretty easily, but I can't understand like what they're going through a lot of times. You know what I mean? Like, they have like, and I think about it, just Malia's like what she goes through, what she went through in high school, how she turned out, and all these like sequence of events that turn people into who they are, kind of like Dark, my favorite show.
What was your favorite TV show?
Dark, right? The German series.
Oh, Dark.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's like a lot of cause and effect and things that happen from the past that really I think change the future. I think it changed the future.
No, there's nothing from from the future happened to the past.
No, I mean, well, there is a theory in physics that where the future can affect the past.
Yeah. But I'm saying nothing from the future came to affect our past.
Where's my time machine? I came in my time machine and I came down to affect
did some did something happen to our past that I'm not aware of? Is
right.
this the Bernstein effect?
The Mandela effect. If you're
The
gonna check
Mandela
that out,
effect?
it's episode 7. Episode 7 is the Mandela effect. Um, yeah, so I think us growing up in high school was very different, but I feel like even in my generation was a lot different from your generation. I don't think like our learning styles, a lot of things were a lot differently.
No,
Well,
I
and
think they're the same. I mean, I didn't have internet in high school.
you didn't have internet.
Well, the only internet we had access to.
Was phone.
Sorry, I should go back. I did have internet, but
Did you go
internet
to
was
this? The
internet
15th
wasn't used to the capabilities wasn't used as it is today. For example, I still have to go to libraries to do book reports.
Oh, wow.
I mean, maybe
I've
that's
never
just
gone
my
to the
school.
library.
I mean, yeah, like maybe I think that changed like maybe when I was like in sophomore year of high school. But everything before that, right, was going to have to do book reports, do reviews. There's all physical books, and I had to go to the library, and look
Yeah,
at encyclopedias and dictionaries and all that stuff manually.
yeah. All
Uh,
your references were from physical
Yeah, all
books,
my
right?
references were. I think only when I was gotten to junior year, that's when I was actually allowed to reference online materials for book
Right.
reports.
I think even
And
for me, I was in college when I was able to reference links and websites, but
yeah,
you had to cite all your sources, like three or
exactly.
four.
I still had to cite everything, and even then, my teachers were like, only X amount of sources could be online. Everything else had to be physical books.
Right, only two. Like we had a minimum of like you couldn't use more than two, I
Yeah, something
think,
like that, right?
references.
And it's like you had to reference everything through a physical page book. And like on camp on school, there was no Wi-Fi,
Oh,
so
or
the
laptops. I didn't
only
have a laptop.
I didn't have a laptop either.
Yeah.
I had a computer back home, but that was just to type up papers. I mean, that was probably the only thing different was like writing them was you could type them on a computer
Word processor of some sort.
instead of writing it by hand.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and
Google
that was
Docs
it.
never existed. Google Docs never existed either back then,
Oh, there was no
which
Google. I mean, we
is,
have Microsoft Word and all that stuff, which I still use today. But
but there
um,
was no cloud, right? There was not a cloud like you'd have to put on a
I mean, I
thumb
had
drive,
yeah, you have to use. Well, I had USB devices.
right?
Yeah, flash
Yeah, and
drives.
I actually also recall that um, when we did get a computer, I think I was
Yeah,
like 12 years.
I had to. I mean, I would. The thing, my process would be, I would type up my report at home, save it
Yeah,
to a flash drive, and then go to school that morning, the day the paper's due, and then print it out, and then pay like 10 cents a page.
10 cents a page, so
Yeah,
cheap.
yeah. They charged you for paper and ink use
At the library
at my school.
or at your school?
Yeah,
I'm trying to
because like,
think.
oh, paper and ink are expensive.
Okay.
So they charge all the students per use for printing, and then if you use color, then it was like
25 cents.
25 cents. Yeah,
Oh, yeah. But you went to a private school. You would think those amenities would have been included in your tuition.
it's not. Nothing was included really. You have to pay for everything:
I
uniform,
remember
lunches, paper, ink.
when I was ninth grade, my mom had a big brick phone, and it was the best thing ever. It only lasts like 10 minutes charge.
Oh, that was the other
And
thing too. Phones really weren't allowed in outside or
well, not
inside.
too many people could also afford them either, or would give them to their kids, right? Like maybe just the adult.
My high school. Well, maybe this is my high school, but I feel like majority of my class had a cellular phone, because the iPhone came out in
9, right? 2003?
2009. What?
I don't know. I maybe that's when apps came out.
Because
I
I know
remember
you.
when
Well,
apps
YouTube.
came,
Okay,
that
for
was amazing.
context, YouTube came out only in 2006.
2000, yes, 2006. I do know
Okay,
that,
and
but
in 2006, I was like a sophomore or junior. So
oh
really, there
man,
wasn't really much to do on your internet prior to that.
June
Um,
29, 27, 2007.
2007. Okay, so
Yeah,
yeah, it was 2007. Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
So iPhone came out in 2007. The smartphone invention wasn't, it was like around 17 or 16,
yeah,
17 years old.
yeah. It wasn't so
So
smart.
everything, I mean, everyone had a smartphone. Back then, it was like everyone wanted a site, like a kick, or what is it called?
Oh, I love the
A
Sidekick. That was
sidekick.
my
Yeah.
favorite phone. I always got the Sidekick until it became obsolete, and they stopped making them. They stopped fixing them, and I had the LX. The LX looked super sleek. I was like, oh, this is good. And I could type 50 words per minute. I was like, shit. Um,
Yeah, I didn't
the
have a sidekick.
the funny thing was is that I was sending. So my friend, she had her wedding in Mexico, and I brought my Sidekick with me, and boom, I was blowing that thing up. My bill was like $3,000.
Jesus.
Yeah, because of the texting and the roaming
My
and the data.
texting was very simple and very abbreviated because I had the simple keyboard where you had to press like the number multiple
The
times.
T9, T9,
Yeah.
T9. Uh, I do recall because my first boyfriend was in my senior year, and then he was a sophomore, and we were just kind of texting each other back and forth. And like I remember when text messages became a thing, and it was so expensive. It was so expensive. I think I had max 200 text messages, and when I went over the text message limit, it was like 10 cents per send, and I was like, oh, I hope they increase this because I was just sending text messages like it was candy.
Yeah, I
And
didn't. I didn't. I barely texted. It was mostly still
oh,
phone calls. And even
yeah,
then, it's not. It's not like I had a lot of people to call. Just my parents, really.
yeah,
Like, hey, or my grandparent, or just calling them. It's like, hey, can you pick me up from school?
yeah. I think well, oh yeah, that those are practical uses. Back then, parents didn't even know where you were. You could be anywhere. You know what I mean? I mean, unless you let them know where you were.
I couldn't leave
Like
campus.
my parents never knew where I was after school.
Nope. They always knew because I couldn't. You couldn't really leave school unless you had special permission.
What about after school when you just can't leave school?
Well, we had a security guard.
Even after school? Like what? Like, can they just keep you against your will after
No, I
school?
mean they kept watch. So I mean, I don't know. I had nowhere to go. I my high school was on the middle of the freeway, so where was I
That's
gonna
true.
go?
You are surrounded by. It's like a moat, a freeway moat.
It's
Like
just
just
cars everywhere. Where am I gonna walk to?
yeah. I do understand that. I mean, I live maybe about 8 minutes away from my high school, so essentially I could just walk home, which I never did actually. I
Yeah,
never did because
I couldn't walk to school.
my friend group, they actually had a car. She was able to drive. One of our friends was able to drive our sophomore year, and so all eight of us would just pile into that car like after school. I'm like, hey, can I get a ride? And luckily we didn't get any new friends because I think if we had any new friends, they wouldn't be able to fit into the car.
I didn't get a car until college.
Oh yeah. Well, she was extra privileged, I guess. She lived in a very big house. I remember we had gone over, she had like a basketball court and all these other things. So it was kind of nice having her as a friend. I mean, I don't talk to her as much, but we're friends on Facebook, so I think that counts. But she was the
Yeah,
one who used to pick us up and drop us off
having
every
a
day.
car in high school wasn't common.
Did you take the bus to school?
No, I got dropped off by my
Oh, from
parents.
your parents. I
Yeah.
see. Yeah, so I had to take the bus to school, but I would always miss it because I never liked waking up early. Now I wake up at 2 a.m. every morning, but I didn't like waking up to go to school. So I'd miss the bus and I would have to walk to school, which is 8 minutes, not a big deal. But
I
and then I also tried to save money.
didn't have a bus near my area.
Did you always go to like mid recess lunch and then also like regular lunch?
What is that?
So mid recess we had wiki, which was like
They didn't have a mid recess. We called it 15-minute break and then be at lunch.
like a job. You got a 15-minute break and you better report
15-minute
back.
recess is, I guess, what it was called.
Oh, okay, yeah. So
And
I
that
had
was
a
like in
15-minute
between
recess.
periods. So that
Did they
was it.
serve food? Did they serve food?
Only in lunch.
Oh, we had food. We had
I mean, we had
wiki.
a
Oh,
convenience stand and you can buy things from.
lame.
Like there,
Yeah,
yeah, that was open during any time. You could buy junk food, snacks,
junk food. Yeah,
energy drinks.
great for your growing, nurturing
Yeah, but you have to pay
brain.
for it. Uh, Actually, you have to pay for everything, really. Lunch too.
How much was your lunch? Do you remember?
No idea.
Oh, ours was
It was
75
like
cents at the time.